Okay, welcome to Critical Weight Theory. This episode is sort of a journey through a 5 minute film that folds centuries into seconds, where ancient voices and futures collide in the desert heat. The film is called Archeopsychic Time Zones, and you can find it online if you look for it. It was directed by Georg Koszulinski, and it is an experimental short released around 2017 with festival screenings continuing into 2019. At just under 5 minutes, it's compact, but anything but simple, at least according to the narratives about the film. Shot in the deserts of New Mexico, the film operates like a temporal collage, melding imagery from vastly different eras into a single visual current. Or if you don't have the imagination for that, it's just going to look like he's taking some, you know, shots of the scenery and putting music over it. So it really depends on how you look at it. But the official narrative of it makes it sound really profound. And if you're able to see it through that lens, then this short film might actually tickle your fancy. So imagine it like this: you've got pre-Columbian petroglyphs carved into stone, indigenous cave dwellings hollowed into rock faces, Spanish colonial ruins crumbling but defiant, post-war highways slicing the lands with their cold geometry, and then glimpses of futures that might never arrive, and all of it flowing together as if time itself had lost its grip. Or again, you might just see scenery paired with music. So Kozlinski isn't a conventional filmmaker. He's a multimodal creator, a composer, a visual essayist, known for fusing ambient soundscapes with layered, often non narrative imagery. His work doesn't really tell stories in a conventional sense, it invokes them, or more precisely, it asks us to sit with stories that have been buried, eroded, forgotten, or not yet written. So, Archeopsychic Time Zones takes inspiration from J.G. Ballard's The Drowned World, a 1962 novel where rising temperatures plunge the planet into a dreamlike regression, jungles swallow cities, and characters lose themselves in ancient memories. And much the same way Kosolinski's film plays with deep time, geological, mythic, historic, post human, collapsing them into one uncanny visual stream. Or at least that's what's supposed to happen. Again, it depends on you and how you see it. There's no dialogue, no conventional plot, just a sequence of images that feel at once archaeological and prophetic. You see the land not as a backdrop, but as a living chronotype, a term that is from literary theory, meaning a fusion of time and space. Here, the desert is the stage and the memory. It holds everything: conquest and resistance, settlement and ruin, and apocalypse and rebirth. And then there's the music composed by Koslinski himself, sparse, ambient, and atmospheric. It doesn't drive the film forward, at least not conventionally. It sort of floats around it like a heat shimmer, and it slows you down, forces your attention. It's not in the background, it's part of the texture of time, so to speak. And critics and programmers place the film alongside other works in the Anthropocene cinema movement, films that meditate on ecological collapse, on humanity's imprint across vast timelines. Archeopsychic Time Zones was featured in series like Encounters in the Anthropocene, a curated selection of experimental shorts wrestling with deep time, as it's called, and with things like extinction and layered histories. It's also a strong example of what media scholars call video specificity. So, the idea that The idea there is that video art is uniquely suited to blend realism with abstraction, narrative with texture, and historical documentation with myth. So yeah, that's a lot of you know fancy jargon and concepts for what again could be seen as just images paired with music. The scenery. And what's this film doing? That's really the important question. That's sort of up to you. It's not just reflecting on time. It could be seen as interrogating our place in time. It might ask, what if the boundaries between epochs are less than walls, or less like walls and more like vapor? And what if you could stand in one spot and hear the echoes of millennia folding in on each other? What if our history is not a line but a spiral? And that way, this film isn't just about the past or the future, it's about dissonance, temporal dissonance. If you want to use a word that instantly makes you sound like you're intelligent, you'll say something like temporal. You don't need to know what it means necessarily. Just use the word sometimes, and you'll sound smarter. It's one of those sort of magic tricks that you can employ with language. If you use certain words, you're going to sound deep. And this movie has the feeling that we are living in the wrong time, or in all times at once. At least if you view it that way. I guess that's how it's supposed to be seen. If you're one of the artsy fartsy types who tends to see things that way. So as the film closes, we're left in a New Mexico twilight. The sun sets, the petroglyphs fade into shadow, the colonial ruins crumble just a little more. The roads stretch on, and the future waits. You're not given closure, you're given a feeling, one that lingers like desert dust in the lungs. Ah, poetry right there. So, yeah, if Archeopsychic Time Zones piqued your interest, you can explore more of Georg Koszulinski's work at georgkoszulinski.com. And his other shorts dive even deeper into ecological temporality, cultural memory, and the future or speculative futures. And if you're into abstract cinema, mythic landscapes, and ambient dread, his catalog might be worth checking out. So, until next time, stay curious.